My family brushed me off for years. At Thanksgiving, I calmly revealed my $160 million fortune. My sister's jaw fell open, and my dad simply stared in silence. Can you imagine feeling so utterly invisible to your own family that you might as well not exist? For years, that was my reality, a shadow in my golden sister's light. But what if that invisibility became the very fuel for an empire, and you finally decided it was time to expose the brutal truth to the people who created it? What happened next? Well, it broke them. I remember the exact day I learned how to become invisible. I was 9 years old. That was the year my older sister, Sophie, turned 18 and received her first car, a brand new, shiny BMW, wrapped in a giant red ribbon, right there in our driveway. I watched from my bedroom window as she shrieked, dancing with joy, hugging our parents while neighbors gathered, all congratulating them on raising such a wonderful daughter. No one, not a single soul, saw me standing there in my second-hand sweater and thrift store slacks. Sophie, you see, she was the golden child. She arrived 7 years before me, when my parents were still young, ambitious, full of zeal, believing they could craft the perfect daughter. By the time I came along, I think I was more of an accident than a plan. That zeal had just faded. The baby books remained empty. After my first birthday, the photo album stopped being updated. My parents ran a modestly successful insurance firm in Connecticut. We weren't struggling, but we weren't wealthy either. Or at least I wasn't. Sophie went to Westfield Academy, a private institution that cost more per year than most people's cars. Me, I went to Franklin Public School, 3 blocks from our house, with leaking ceiling tiles and textbooks copyrighted in the early 2000s. When I dared to ask why Sophie got private school, and I didn't, my mother looked at me as if I'd asked why the sky was blue. Sophie needs more stimulus, sweetheart. She's talented. You're doing perfectly fine where you are. Fine. That word, it haunted me as a kid. Sophie was extraordinary, brilliant, destined for greatness. I was just fine. Sophie's 17th birthday present? A trip to Paris with our parents. For mine, I got a $30 grocery store cake. I bought a second-hand graphing calculator for school because mine broke, and I knew better than to even ask for a replacement. Initially, I wasn't bitter. I was too young to really understand what was happening. I just thought this was how families worked. Some kids got more because they deserved it. I internalized that, and it became a part of me. But I also developed something Sophie never had: ingenuity. While Sophie was taking French lessons and violin classes, I was teaching myself to code using library books and free internet courses. While she spent her summers at pricey camps in the Adirondacks, I worked at a small grocery store, saving every single dime. While she was deciding which Ivy League school she deigned to attend, I was applying to state schools, praying for scholarships. And you know what? I got in. Full academic scholarship to the University of Connecticut. My parents, they treated me to dinner at Applebee's to celebrate. When Sophie got into Yale and they paid full tuition, they threw a garden party for 50 people, complete with a catered buffet and a champagne toast. I ate 3 sliders and left early. Nobody even noticed. College became my escape. I double majored in computer science and mathematics, worked 2 part-time jobs, and spent every spare moment honing my skills. Most of my breaks spent away from home. I'd tell my parents I was busy with work or studies, which was true, but really I just couldn't stand watching Sophie return home to fanfare and joy while I got a dismissive, "Oh, you're here too." During my junior year, something just snapped. To supplement my income, I'd started freelancing, building websites and apps for small businesses. One client reported inventory management issues, wasting thousands due to inefficient supply chain tracking. Over Christmas break, I built them a solution. It was tough, grueling work, but it worked. They paid me $6,500, the most money I'd ever seen at once. But here's the kicker, they talked about it. Within 6 months, I had 10 other businesses asking for similar solutions. I reduced to part-time student status and focused entirely on developing better, more complex software. I slept 4 hours a night, lived off ramen and coffee, and programmed until my fingers ached. The software evolved. I called it SupplySync. It grew into something far bigger than I ever imagined. A full supply chain management platform, integrating with existing systems, providing real-time data. At 21, I was running a real tech company from my dorm room. I earned my bachelor's degree at 22. Sophie had graduated from Yale the year before and was working at a top marketing firm in Manhattan, living in an apartment my parents helped her acquire. They were so proud. They'd show off pictures of her corner office like they'd built it. Me, still invisible. They knew I'd graduated, knew I worked with computers, but they weren't interested in the details. When I tried to explain what SupplySync did, my father would nod politely and change the subject to Sophie's latest client presentation. So I stopped trying. There was one occasion, though, that almost broke my resolve to stay silent. I was 23 and home for Easter, one of the few times I made the trip. Sophie had just gotten engaged to her first fiancé, Ethan, a lawyer my parents adored. That engagement lasted 8 months before he cheated, by the way. But that day, she was flaunting her ring to everyone who walked through the door. I just signed my second major contract for $300,000, which would let me hire 5 new employees. I couldn't suppress my excitement. So, at dinner I tried again. I have some good news, I announced, seizing a rare gap in the Sophie worship session. My mom glanced at me with mild interest. Oh, did you meet someone, honey? No, it's for work. I just signed a really big client. That's wonderful, dear, Dad said, not looking up from his phone. Sophie, your mother and I were thinking we should have an engagement party here at the house. Maybe rent a tent for the backyard. Sophie shrieked, and the conversation shifted completely. I excused myself. I went upstairs to my childhood bedroom, which had naturally been converted into Sophie's gift-wrapping station, complete with rolls of expensive paper and elaborate bows. My news, the incredible news, was dying in my throat as I watched them plan a party for a relationship that wouldn't even last a year. I called my business partner, Olivia. She'd been with me since the beginning, a brilliant developer I'd met through a coding forum. They don't care, I choked out, sitting on the floor surrounded by Sophie's wedding supplies. Then stop telling them, Olivia said, her voice calm and firm. Lily, you don't need their approval. Build your empire. Let the art speak for itself. That talk, that single conversation altered everything. Olivia was right. I had been chasing crumbs of recognition from people who would never see me as anything more than Sophie's forgettable little sister. From that moment forward, I channeled every ounce of hurt, every dismissal, every forgotten moment into creating something undeniable. At 23, I landed my first truly major contract, a regional logistics company. They paid me $250,000 to implement SupplySync throughout their entire operation. I hired my first 2 employees, brilliant developers I met online, who believed in what we were building. At 24, a national retailer signed on, then another and another. At 25, I had 47 employees and $7 million in annual revenue. At 26, a venture capital firm offered me $18 million for 30% of the company. I negotiated them down to 20% for $12 million. My lawyer nearly had a heart attack at my confidence, but I knew what SupplySync was worth. I could have told my family then. I could have shown up at Christmas with news of my achievement, proving I was more than just okay. But something stopped me. Maybe pride. Maybe it was the memory of every dismissive comment, every forgotten birthday, every time I'd been an afterthought. I wanted to see how far I could go while they weren't looking. I wanted to build something so undeniable that they'd have no choice but to see me. So I stayed quiet. I lived modestly in a small apartment in Boston, drove a Honda Civic, and just kept building. At 27, SupplySync went international. We signed contracts in Canada, Mexico, and the United Kingdom. Revenue hit $25 million. I moved into a nicer apartment, still nothing flashy, and bought a nicer car, a Lexus, but I kept the Honda too. When I was 28, the acquisition offers started rolling in. Tech behemoths, wanting to absorb SupplySync into their empires, offering exorbitant sums of money. I turned them all down. This was mine, and I wasn't ready to give it up. The first $120 million offer came from a Silicon Valley giant, but they wanted to dismantle SupplySync, integrate the tech into their existing platform. I declined within 24 hours. The second offer was $170 million from a European conglomerate. Better money, but they wanted to transfer me to Frankfurt and phase out my entire staff within a year. My board thought I was crazy. Lily, these are life-changing offers. One investor practically yelled at me during a heated meeting. You're leaving hundreds of millions on the table. I'm not interested in money that comes with conditions that betray everything I've built, I told them. My voice was surprisingly steady. SupplySync is more than just code. It's a team. It's a vision. Then I met Claire Matthews, the CEO of Innovix Technologies. She was a woman who'd built her own business from the ground up, and she saw the true value of SupplySync. We met for coffee in Boston, and she presented a plan that honored what I had created. I don't want to absorb SupplySync, Claire explained, swirling her coffee. I want to amplify it. You remain CEO. Your team remains intact. We provide the infrastructure and capital to become truly global. You maintain your vision. We give you the resources to make it bigger than you ever could alone. I listened to her pitch for 2 hours, and by the end, I knew this was different. The negotiations took 3 months. My lawyers and theirs argued over every detail. I fought for my team, securing generous retention bonuses and equity packages. Claire just grinned across the conference table when we finally agreed on $280 million, with all my demands met. You drive a hard bargain, Lily, she said. I know my worth, I replied. I've spent my entire life having others undervalue me. I'm finished with that. Innovix Technologies acquired SupplySync for $280 million, keeping it as an independent subsidiary. I remained CEO, maintaining creative control, with them providing the infrastructure to scale globally. After taxes, legal fees, and setting aside money for my employee bonuses, I personally walked away with $160 million. I kept $25 million liquid and invested the rest in a diversified portfolio. At 28, I had more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. And my family? They had no idea. Sophie, on the other hand, had recently gotten engaged to Chase, a hedge fund manager. My father once suggested I apply for a job at his insurance company because they needed someone with computer skills. And my mother would occasionally ask if I was still programming, as if it was a hobby I might outgrow. My parents were overjoyed about Sophie and Chase, so I flew in for their engagement party, gave them a $300 gift card to their registry, and left before the speeches began. Sophie didn't even notice I was gone until the next day. The acquisition closed in October. By November, I'd settled into my new role, signed a 5-year contract with Innovix, and began planning what to do with my newfound wealth. I anonymously donated to my old public school, funding a complete tech lab renovation and established scholarship funds. I also purchased my first real piece of luxury, a beautiful house in Brooklyn with a view of the Charles River, but I didn't post about it. I didn't tell anyone outside my close circle. Thanksgiving was approaching, and for the first time in years, I actually wanted to go home. Not because I'd softened toward my family, but because I'd realized something profound. Their opinion of me no longer mattered. I'd spent so long desperate for their validation, their recognition, their pride, but I didn't need it anymore. I had validated myself. I called my mother to confirm my arrival. She sounded shocked. Oh, excellent, honey. Sophie and Chase will be there too. Chase's parents might even stop by. It'll be a wonderful family reunion. A pause. You're still doing that computer stuff, right? Are you earning enough to get by? Your father knows someone who might be hiring. I smiled at the phone. I'm fine, Mom. Really fine. That's good. See you Thursday. I packed a suitcase, including one special item, the folder with the acquisition documentation. I didn't know if I'd say anything at all, but I wanted it with me as a tangible reminder of what I'd accomplished without them. The drive to Connecticut felt different this time. Normally, I'd spend the entire trip preparing myself for disappointment, bracing to be overlooked and undervalued. This time, I just listened to music, enjoying the fall colors. But there was something else, too. A strange calm I'd never felt before. I kept thinking about a conversation I'd had with my therapist, Dr. Chun, the week before. I'd started seeing her 2 years ago, finally ready to unpack the damage of growing up invisible. Why do you want to go to Thanksgiving? She'd asked me. What do you hope to gain from this? I'd sat with that question for a long time. I think I want to see if I still care, I'd finally concluded. If their opinion of me still has power over me, then I know I still have work to do. But if it doesn't, I'd smiled. Then I'm free. Dr. Chun had nodded. Just remember, Lily, freedom doesn't require their recognition. You do not have to prove anything to them. I know, I'd responded, and I meant it. Now, as I drove into my parents' driveway, I felt that reality sink into my bones. I wasn't here to prove anything. I was here to see who I'd become despite them. Or maybe to say goodbye to the girl who'd spent so many years desperate for their love. When I arrived Wednesday evening, the house looked exactly the same. The manicured lawn, the expensive cars in the driveway. Sophie's BMW had been upgraded to a Mercedes 2 years ago. The same chandelier visible through the front window. Mom greeted me at the door with an instinctual, fleeting hug. You made it. Come inside, come inside. Sophie and Chase are in the living room. Sophie looked up from the couch, where she was scrolling through her phone. Chase sat beside her, looking exactly like every hedge fund manager I'd ever seen. Expensive suit even on a casual Wednesday, perfectly styled hair, and a watch that cost more than most people's cars. Sophie, she'd always been beautiful, tall, blonde, effortlessly graceful, making heads turn. Hey, Em, she murmured, her focus already back on her phone. Long time. Hey, I said, putting down my luggage. How's the wedding planning going? Oh my gosh, it's ridiculous. We're looking at venues for next June, and everything excellent is already booked. Mom has been helping me, thank God. Chase's mother too. It's basically a full-time job, she remarked, barely glancing up. Dad emerged from his desk, reading spectacles perched on his nose. Good to see you, Lily. How are things on the job front? It's good. Very good. Do you still do computers? He asked. Yes, Dad. Still using computers. He nodded, already losing interest. Well, that's steady employment. Hoping for good benefits. Sophie sneered. Dad, she's a programmer, not a doctor. The benefits are probably basic. I could have corrected her. I could have highlighted that my benefits package at Innovix Technologies included full health care, unlimited PTO, stock options, and a personal financial advisor. Instead, I just said they're acceptable. My compensation alone was $700,000 per year, excluding incentives. Thanksgiving Day arrived with the typical chaos. Mom had been cooking since dawn, rejecting help, but still complaining about how much work it was. Sophie directed Chase around like he was hired staff, having him move furniture and set up the dining room to her exact specifications. I helped where I could, mostly staying in the kitchen, chopping vegetables, trying not to get in the way. Aunt Laura arrived around noon with her husband, Uncle Dan, and their two adolescent kids, Ryan and Ava. Laura was Mom's older sister, cut from the same cloth, obsessed with appearances and success. Her kids had inherited those entitled attitudes. Lily. Laura air-kissed both my cheeks. Look at you, still single, I see. Don't you worry, honey. The right guy will come along. You just need to put yourself out there more. Maybe try one of those apps. I'm not really looking right now, Aunt Laura. Oh, nonsense. Everyone's looking. You don't want to end up alone, do you? She turned to Sophie. Now, Sophie, tell me everything about the wedding. I want all the details. I retreated back to the kitchen. Dinner was called at 3 p.m. We all gathered around the extended dining table. Mom and Dad at the heads, Sophie and Chase on one side with Laura's family, and me squeezed in between Ryan and Uncle Dan on the other. Dad said, "Grace," meaning pass the dishes, and the conversation began. As usual, it centered on Sophie. There was turkey, stuffing, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, and canned cranberry sauce that no one ate. So, Chase, my dad began, beaming. Sophie tells me you just got promoted. Chase grinned modestly. Yes, sir. Managing director. It's a significant step up. That is fantastic. You two are really building a life together. I'm very proud. Dad smiled at them. Thank you, Mr. Reed. We are very excited about the future. Sophie grasped Chase's hand. We're looking for properties in Westchester with at least 5 bedrooms and a decent school district. We hope to start a family in a few years. Mom absolutely sparkled. Oh, Sophie, that's fantastic. You're going to be a lovely mommy. I felt a shift inside me as I watched this interaction. There was no envy or grief, just an anthropological wonder. I studied my mother's face as she gazed adoringly at Sophie, trying to remember if she'd ever looked at me that way. I couldn't recall a single instance. Dad was beaming at Chase as if he'd personally selected him from a catalog of perfect sons-in-law. You have a good head on your shoulders, son. Sophie is blessed to have you. Chase smiled humbly, but I noticed a faint smirk, the grin of a guy who understood just how precious he was in this family's eyes. He was the golden son-in-law for the golden daughter, another accomplishment for them to boast about. While building Supply Sync, I'd reflected on my own dating life, which had been sparse. I'd had relationships, a few serious ones, but I'd never brought anyone home. What was the point? So they could compare him to Chase? So my mother could make that pinched expression she gets when I do anything that draws attention away from Sophie? No, I'd kept that part of my life separate, protected, just like everything else that mattered to me. Laura leaned forward. What is your budget for the home? We're looking in the 1.5 to 2.5 million range, Chase remarked casually, like he was discussing the weather. Everyone made please sounds. Ryan asked if they'd have a pool, and Ava asked if she could come visit. I just ate my turkey and said nothing. And the wedding? Laura added, have you made a budget for it? Sophie laughed. We wanted it to be unique. We're thinking around $250,000. Dad is assisting with part of it, and Chase's folks are also contributing $250,000 for one day. I thought about the scholarships that money could fund, the lives it might change, but I kept that thought to myself. You deserve it, sweetheart, Mom cooed. It's your special day. Sophie's wedding, Sophie's future house, Sophie's work, Chase's advancement, their wonderful life together. I might as well have been a piece of furniture. Uncle Dan, to his credit, finally reached out to me. So, Lily, how about you? How is your work going? The table went silent. Everyone stared at me with hazy curiosity, as if I were about to deliver a weather report. It's going well, I said simply. Are you still doing computer programming? Dad inquired. Yeah, that's nice, honey. Mom replied in that tone that truly meant, can we get back to talking about Sophie now? Sophie genuinely laughed. Lily is being modest. I'm sure she's doing well with her little applications, or whatever. Little apps. My software handled millions of transactions every day across 4 continents, but they were little apps. Actually, I heard myself say, I've recently had some changes at work. Oh. Mom perked up slightly. Did you get a promotion? That's nice, dear. Something like that. Sophie was already looking bored, reaching for her wine glass. Chase was checking his phone beneath the table. I sold my company, I murmured. The words hung in the air for a moment. Everyone was still digesting, not quite grasping. Your company? Dad's face wrinkled. I thought you worked for somebody else. No, I've owned my own firm for 7 years. SupplySync. It's a supply chain management software platform. I was the founder and CEO. Sophie's fingers froze halfway to her mouth. Wait, what? I started it in college. I built it up. We conducted operations in 8 nations last month. I sold it to Innovix Technologies. The stillness in the room was oppressive. Laura's fork clattered against her plate. I took a sip of water, allowing the moment to stretch. The sale was $280 million. After taxes and other charges, I personally cleared $160 million. I apologize. Did you say millions? Yes. That's not possible. Sophie gasped. You're a coder. You live in a little apartment and drive a Honda. I still own my Honda, but I also purchased a Lexus. And the flat isn't small. It's just minimalist. I also just purchased a home in Brooklyn. Chase was gazing at me like I had a second head. Brooklyn? Those houses begin at. Mine was $4 million, I responded quietly. Waterfront, 5 bedrooms, 3-car garage. I paid cash. Sophie's face had gone utterly white. It's a joke. This must be a joke. It's not a joke. I took out my phone, opened my banking app, and showed them the amount in just my checking account. $25,500,000, which I kept liquid. The rest is invested. Laura shrieked, startling everyone. Oh my God, that's real. That's a real number. Mom snatched the phone from my grasp, peering at it as if it might bite her. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish. How are you, Lily? When did this happen? I've been developing SupplySync since I was 21. 7 years. I've had large clientele for 5 years. I just never acknowledged it because no one asked. I looked Sophie in the eyes. You said I was doing fine with my little apps. You were not mistaken. I was okay. Better than fine. Dad had turned absolutely pale. But why didn't you tell us? We are your family. Because you never wanted to know. Every time I tried to discuss my work, you turned the conversation to Sophie. Every accomplishment I had was ignored. Every time I returned home, I was invisible. My voice was firm and quiet. So, I stopped trying to be noticed by you. I created something magnificent without your approval, your aid, or even your notice. Sophie smacked her fingers against the table. You made us believe you were struggling. You made me feel sad for you. Have you felt sorry for me, Sophie? Really? I chuckled without amusement. You never thought about me at all. We would have helped you if you'd needed it. I've never needed it. That is the point. While you were getting everything handed to you. The private school, the cars, the trips, the money for Yale, I was working on something real. I worked 80-hour weeks. I taught myself everything. I earned every single dollar. Chase was feverishly texting on his phone, plainly glancing at me. His eyes widened. Holy, she's speaking the truth. Lily Reed, the founder of SupplySync. The transaction generated headlines. It's all here. Forbes described her as one of the most successful female tech entrepreneurs under 30. Laura grabbed his phone and hastily read. There are pictures. Lily attends conferences. Lily met with, oh my God, is that the governor? Mom was weeping now, mascara dripping down her cheeks. Lily, love, why are you keeping this from us? We are your family. We love you. Do you? The question came out sharper than I had intended. Did you love me when you neglected my birthday 3 years in a row? Did you love me when you spent $200,000 on Sophie's schooling while giving me nothing? Did you adore me when I returned home for Christmas, and you didn't have a stocking for me because you forgot I was coming? That's not fair, Dad remarked softly. Isn't it? Name one aspect of my life. One item that is not related to my profession. Name my best friend. Name my favorite meal. Name something that demonstrates you've paid attention to me over the previous decade. Silence. Sophie's face was flushed, and tears streamed down her cheeks. You're intentionally hurting me. You waited until my turn, until everyone was celebrating my life, and you decided to steal it. Your moment. I couldn't stop a harsh laugh. Sophie, every moment has been your moment. You have been the focal point of every holiday, every meal, every family event for the past 28 years. This wasn't anything I had planned. I wasn't sure what I was going to say, but I am so weary of being invisible. You're jealous. Sophie screamed. You've always been jealous of me. I am not jealous of you, Sophie. I am sorry for you. That knocked her down cold. What? Everything you own was given to you. Your education, your career options, even your job. Dad called in favors to help you get that interview, remember? You've never had to battle for anything. Never had to prove yourself. Never had to question your ability to succeed on your own. And now you're marrying a man who makes good money, planning a life that's comfortable and expected. I hesitated. There's nothing wrong with that lifestyle, but it's nothing extraordinary. It's not remarkable. It's precisely what everyone expected you to have, because that's all you've ever learned how to accept, having things handed to you. Sophie leaped across the table at me. Chase drew her back as she yelled obscenities. Laura fanned herself as if she might swoon. Mom wept into her napkin. Ryan and Ava sat still, eyes wide. Dad finally found his voice. Lily, I think you should leave. Yeah. I rose up, exhausted. I think so, too. I collected my coat and luggage. As I approached the door, I glanced back to see them all gazing at me. Sophie in pure, unadulterated rage. Mom and Dad in amazement and possibly embarrassment. Laura in naked jealousy. For what it's worth, I murmured gently, I didn't come here to ruin anything. I came here because I realized I don't need you to see me anymore. I see myself. I know what I'm worth, and it has nothing to do with money, but everything to do with the fact that I built the life I'm proud of on my own. I walked out. I heard Sophie wailing, Laura's voice rising in excitement, Mom begging Dad to do something. I got in my Lexus and drove away. My phone started blowing up before I even hit the highway. Sophie was calling and texting, screaming at me through voicemail. Mom was crying, asking me to come back so we could talk. Dad sent stern messages about family loyalty. Even Aunt Laura tried to call, probably to see if I'd invest in whatever scheme she was running. I blocked them all. 3 days later, I received an email from Sophie. It was long, rambling, full of accusations and hurt feelings, but buried in the middle was one sentence that caught my attention. Mom said you bought that house with Dad's money, which you must have stolen from the family business somehow. I laughed out loud in my new living room, looking out at the Charles River. They still couldn't believe it. The invisible daughter, the afterthought, the one who was okay, had accomplished more than they could have imagined. I didn't respond to the email. My lawyer called a week after Thanksgiving. Your family's attorney got in touch. They're arguing you owe them recompense for your family's investment in your education and upbringing. They want $5 million. Tell them no, I said, my voice calm, and inform them that if they approach me again, I will file a countersuit for mental anguish and child negligence. I've saved every transaction, bank statement, and record that indicates just how much they invested in Sophie versus me. I will make it public. I never heard from their lawyer again. Christmas came and went. I spent it in Aspen with friends I'd made in the tech world, people who knew me for what I built, not for being someone's forgotten daughter. We skied, drank expensive wine, and celebrated our collective success, while my phone remained blissfully silent. In January, I received a message from an unknown number. It turned out to be my cousin Ryan. Hello, Lily. I know things are weird with the family, but I wanted to say that what you did was fantastic. You inspired me. I'm going to work hard and create something of my own. Thank you for teaching me that it is possible. I gazed at the message for a long time. Then I typed, thank you, Ryan. If you ever need help or simply want to speak, I'm here. Create something you are proud of. Perhaps some good did come out of that fiasco of a Thanksgiving after all. Sophie married in June. I wasn't invited, but I saw photographs on social media. It looked stunning, just like Sophie's fantasy wedding. 6 months ago, I founded a new company focused on AI-driven logistics solutions, bringing in some of my best supply sync employees. I didn't feel anything when I looked at those photos. No anger, no sadness, no satisfaction. We're already getting interest from major players. This time, I'm not building in silence. I'm on panels, giving talks, and mentoring young women in tech. Last month, I was invited to speak at a tech conference at Yale. I almost said no, but then I remembered Sophie walking those halls and how proud my parents had been. So I said yes. My talk was about creating success from nothing, being underestimated, and turning invisibility into an advantage. The audience hung on every word. The Q&A session lasted an hour because there were so many questions. As I was leaving, a young woman approached me, clutching a notebook, looking nervous. "Hi, Miss Reed. I just wanted to thank you. I am a first-generation college student. I am here on scholarship, and my family has no idea what I'm doing. They believe I should have stayed at home, gotten married, and lived a simpler life. Your tale helped me feel less alone." I held her gaze. "You are not alone, and you're going to accomplish fantastic things. Do not let anyone make you feel invisible." She went, shedding happy tears, and I understood something. This was better than vengeance. This was purpose. My family still attempts to reach out on occasion. Mom sends cards on my birthday, which is strange because she remembers it so quickly now. Dad emails tech articles, as if he's always been interested. Sophie sent me a message last month saying she was pregnant and thought I should know. I don't respond not out of cruelty, but because I've built a life that doesn't include them. I have friends who celebrate my victories and support me through challenges. I have colleagues who respect my expertise. I have a future I'm excited about, full of possibilities I've created. I have peace. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how everything happened, if I wish I'd handled Thanksgiving differently. The truth is, I don't know. Maybe I could have been more tactful, less dramatic. Maybe I should have told them years ago, or never told them at all. But I think about that 9-year-old girl watching her sister get a BMW, internalizing the message that she wasn't worth investing in. I think about every dismissive comment, every forgotten moment, every time I was just fine. And I think about the woman I became despite all of that. Or maybe because of it. No, I don't regret it. I earned my invisibility and then my visibility. And I did it my way on my terms. The money is nice and the success is gratifying. But the best part is that I finally see myself clearly, which is worth more than $25 million, more than any validation my family could ever offer. I'm no longer invisible. I'm just now visible to the people who count, including myself. And my father? At Thanksgiving dinner, after I broke the news of my $25 million and the acquisition, after Sophie's tantrum and Laura's scream, after all the turmoil erupted, he just sat there, silently gazing at his plate. He didn't defend me or them. He didn't apologize for all those years of neglect, or try to justify the inequality. He didn't congratulate me or express pride. He just sat there, fork in hand, looking like a man who realized too late that he had bet on the wrong daughter his entire life and lost everything that truly mattered in the process. That stillness conveyed more than any words. Have you ever faced a moment of reckoning with your own family, or perhaps achieved something huge that they never expected? What did it feel like? I'd really love to hear your thoughts in the comments below.